Right, so Keir Starmer is continuing to cause ire in the Labour Party ranks by clamping down on the free speech and freedom of expression of Labour elected officials, along with ordinary members if they get caught, by saying there will be consequences for attending any pro-Palestine rallies. If caught, likely resulting in suspension and a probable expulsion, judging by the heavy-handedness of his regime on party discipline, as we've been seeing for years. Of course, this has appalled and disgusted many who have resigned from the party as a direct consequence of this diktat of Starmer taking the side of Israel, Zionist without qualification such that he is. Of course, he has tried to backpedal on that somewhat, denying that he ever advocated for war crimes against Palestine, despite us all hearing it on a radio interview. But the one thing he never rode back on was that ban on Labour officials attending those demonstrations for Palestine. He hasn't budged an inch there. And what will cause even more hell up now is the news that at a pro-Israel rally, not only was an elected official allowed to go, but an actual shadow minister not only went, but was a speaker at the event. If Starmer wants to give the impression he gives the slightest whiff of a shit about Palestine, he's failing utterly. Right, so the diktat. Nobody is allowed to go to a Palestine demonstration or else. So said the letter from Starmer's miserable sidekick and Labour General Secretary, David Evans. And the main sentence to take away from that was, there will be a number of protests and demonstrations taking place over the weekend. Elected representatives have been given strong advice not to attend any of these events. Of course, a great many went anyway. People in their thousands protesting in London, Liverpool, Glasgow and everywhere else as well. Many more places. Many will have been Labour members, certainly at the very least. And certainly a now ousted Labour MP, though no less a representative of the movement in Jeremy Corbyn, was a speaker for Palestine, and as always, he gave it the beans, particularly taking aim at Rishi Sunak and Joe Biden for their complete acquiescence to one side of this conflict when you don't achieve peace by saying you want one side to win. Both UK and US leaders have been utterly obnoxious idiots about this. Starmer is equally as bad, though, if not worse on this matter, as many of his own councillors and council leaders, those who haven't resigned in disgust at him yet, have complained, many with large Muslim communities. How can we show support for these communities with these people who come out and vote for us if you won't let us support them? And others taking a more hardline tone towards the party leader, demanding he start showing some sympathy towards Palestinians as well. Well, if they had money to lobby him like Israel seemed to do, if they had funded his leadership campaign like Israel lobbyists did, perhaps he would. Everything to do with Starmer seems to come with a price tag, and if you can afford him, well, he'll pretty much back whatever policy you like. If you don't like this position, he has plenty of others and faces to match. Same with principles. But that's the impression his 4 years as Labour leader have left us, left the country. And that's certainly the impression it's given me. Leicester Council leader Peter Soulsby, for example, let's go up to Leicester. Leicester has a huge Muslim presence. He said to Starmer, I have no doubt at all that you and the party have been entirely right to condemn the brutal terrorist attacks in Israel emanating from Hamas in Gaza. However, the impression that has been given is that this condemnation of recent events extends to approving uncritically the Israeli government's response and of ignoring the decades of injustice and the oppression of Palestinians and the violations of their human rights. Muslim councillors are under enormous pressure from their communities who support Labour values. Can't argue with that. He's absolutely right. He's bang on the money. Another critic of Keir Starmer over this banning of Palestinian demonstration, though, has been Tory peer Sayeeda Warsi. Well, of course, she's having a go at Labour, you might be thinking, who hasn't singled out, but she hasn't just singled out Labour in this, it should be said. She's picked on her own party as well. But as far as Labour goes, she says the Labour Party too, after years of taking that vote for granted, having received over 80% of the Muslim vote, found itself failing to respond to anti-Muslim racism being experienced by its members. Once again, Muslims are the most targeted religious group. And again, she's right. And a further 72 councillors are apparently now under pressure to resign from the Labour Party by their Muslim communities, by their constituents, because Starmer is not listening to them. This is a problem he is making worse through ignorance, through denial, through other ministers making excuses for him. But the damage being done by saying to elected officials, do not go to pro-Palestine rallies, do not stand with your Muslim communities, is appalling, and it's not going to go away. Somehow, though, he has managed to still make things even worse for himself. He's got a talent for it. You see, it isn't just pro-Palestine demonstrations happening. There are pro-Israel ones too. They are less reported. They're a damn sight smaller on the whole, but they're notable because attendance of these are not banned by Starmer and Labour. He has no problem with people standing with Israel and demonstrating for Israel, just he has that problem with Palestine. And as if to make that abundantly clear to even the hardest-headed Labour members still hanging in there, thinking Hamas are the reason Starmer won't publicly support Palestinians, when Hamas are not most Palestinians. Do educate yourselves on that. Do get that point across. But to put it beyond doubt that Starmer, just like Sunak and Biden and von der Leyen and too many other world leaders, has taken a side, make no bones about it. Not only are Labour officials allowed to attend these events, but at a large one in London held over the weekend, not only was a Labour official there, but a member of Starmer's shadow cabinet was there. A shadow minister, no less. But not only were they there, they were actually one of the speakers at the event. Jonathan Reynolds, the Shadow International Trade Secretary, was there, addressing the crowd along with Michael Gove representing the Tories. So sides are very much taken here on both sides of the House by both main parties, and the side they're both taking is with Israel. Reynolds curiously has drawn no attention to this event himself on his own Twitter timeline at all, though he was more than happy to share Starmer meeting Muslim community members in South Wales. So quite the two-faced game at play there. I've got a video coming on that South Wales meeting, incidentally. There's hell up about that as well. I'll come on to that in another video. Shame somebody in the crowd, though, had a camera and shared a pic of Reynolds speaking. Otherwise, we'd never know about it, though. Certainly, no media are covering this at all. The general public, we ordinary working class folk, having to be our own media again. Now, as much as the hypocrisy of the Starmer regime here has been exposed yet again for being two-faced as all get out, the Israel demo, it does have to be said, was called not in support of the Netanyahu regime or anything of that ilk, but to call for the release of hostages taken by Hamas. And I absolutely agree with that sentiment. And I think that's something they should be perfectly entitled to demonstrate about, as much as I stand by the Palestinian people and their oppression and the apartheid they live under. That is the doing of successive Israeli governments. And as much as some Israeli citizens, notably the settlers' attitudes go and how offensive they can be, how disgustingly they talk about Palestinians as not even being a thing or being regarded as subhuman, most Israeli people do not think like that. And I prefer to think those taken hostage and the families affected are like the majority of Israelis who just want peace. Polling there currently suggests some 80% of Israelis blame Benjamin Netanyahu for everything that is going on right now. So the people there cannot all be bad, cannot all be fooled by what is going on, and nobody deserves to have their family members taken at all, regardless of who they are or what they believe in. That isn't to say that some of the rally were not Zionists, because of course some were. We're not there to just declare they're taking a side, much like our media and like our government officials are. There were people there holding up signs that were quite offensive, but they were in the minority. Fundamentally here, though, Keir Starmer, by allowing Jonathan Reynolds to address this crowd at a pro-Israel event, has shown whose side he is on and whose side he is not on, what he stands for and what he doesn't. He's taken the side of the oppressor against the oppressed, the side of apartheid and not equality, the side of Israel and not Palestine. He is not on the side of Muslim communities. He's on the side of the Zionist and the colonizer. He's on the side of the powerful, not the powerless. So what kind of a leader would he make for the UK? Not one for the many and one not for the few. That's for the brave and sure. This latest show of hypocrisy he's exposing so that he or other Labour figures will get questioned by it, because they need to be. They need to be hammered on this right now. We're seeing the knock-on effects of these discussions from a video or a tweet. It'll get picked up by constituents, by councillors. The questions come. It escalates up the line until the questions get asked. Why did a shadow minister attend a pro-Israel event when they are banned from attending pro-Palestine ones? And when that gets asked on a mainstream news outlet, like LBC, for example, then we'll know the message has got through. Start asking that question of your representatives. Share this video. We deserve answers. I really want to see how Starmer tries to wriggle out of this one, because I can't see how in hell he can. And for many councillors hanging in there still, debating whether or not to go, surely this ought to be the last straw for a few of you now. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Please do have your say on the story in the comments below too and be part of the conversation. Are you disgusted by this or entirely not surprised? Let me know your thoughts. Meanwhile, here's a video recommendation where Keir Starmer over this past weekend was once more put on the spot to just say sorry for backing war crimes against Palestinians, for backing the withdrawal of power and water by Israel, and he instead just flat out denied he ever said such a thing. What an absolute weasel of a man he is. And I'll hopefully see you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.